Hey everyone! Today we have a viewer requested video. We're going to find out what the heck all these are and when and how to use them. But first, do me a favor, subscribe to the page, really helps the channel. I'm Mandy, and this is Mandy's Mini. Before we begin, I want to put out a disclaimer that all of this information that I'm about to go over is my opinions, my experiences, and the information as I understand it. So if you hear any contradicting information, let me know. We can sort it all out. And if you have other ways of using these items, then please share in the comments and we can all learn together. All right, let's begin. The first product I want to talk about is washes. Now, Games Workshop has a lot of great washes. I know there's a lot of other companies out there that also make washes. I like Agrex Earthshade from Games Workshop, but that's the only pre-made one that I typically use on a regular basis. Anytime I need a wash beyond that, I actually make it myself. Now, I find it very important not to use a detail brush with your washes because they are very thin, so it's easy to get the paint in the ferrule and then you'll lose your tip. So my nicer brushes are in the back, and we're going to use this brush here. I usually use for all my washes. Just get a bunch on, and you can see how it flows down into the recesses, but it does slightly tint the raised areas. And when you're starting out, it's a great way to make shadows. Now, I don't use it very often myself because I prefer layering. I think we get a better look that way. However, there are times, like for example, my little beggar here that I've been working on. He's a homeless beggar. He, of course, has dirt and grime all over him, which I was able to achieve with the wash. Next, I have Army Painter's Quick Shade Dark Tone. This is supposed to be like a wash. They also have a strong tone and a light tone. The dark tone obviously is to shade dark colors, like your really dark browns, blacks, things like that. Strong is for any bright colors or bold colors, and then light, of course, for your whites and beiges. Next, we have glazes. Now, some companies put out glazes. I've never tried any of them. There also is glaze medium available. Many companies make that. I highly recommend it for when you're starting out because getting the correct consistency isn't easy until you finally get it down. So this is nice to have on hand in case you are having trouble. But I'll also show you how you can make your own glaze. Glazing is a good way of blending your shadows, midtones, and highlights together. It's also a good way of creating a tint on the model. So a lot of times modelers will call it tinting, but it's the same thing. So right now I'm going to take my glaze medium and I'm going to put some in. And then we take the color that we want. And I'm going to put a little bit of that in. Now, the important thing when you're glazing is you always want to test it out to make sure you have it thin enough. So I keep a little, this was a leftover piece from a display we built. It's just 3D printed. And I'm able to use that to see how thin my glazes are. how thin my airbrush glazes are. I use this for a lot of things, so that's why testing a pattern here. So if I want to glaze that pattern, you can see how that works. Now Glazes goes very well over light colors, but it tends to not cover very well in the darker colors. That's why the green, you can't see the pink as much over here. You use that to your benefit by going from your highlight and glazing into the dark, so you don't see that brush stroke where you pick it up. It's usually pretty hidden. The green is more of a mid-tone. It's not quite dark enough. So especially when you're doing skin tone, it's always good to kind of glaze some of the blood underneath. So with a magenta or a red, and you just take it in the areas you want and glaze it right over what you're painting. In the areas that would be a little bit more red. Now, if I had actual paint underneath this, obviously you'd still see that color coming through. But it's the same thing if you're just trying to blend the colors of a cloak, blend the colors of a layering. If it didn't go smooth enough with the layering, you can always glaze it to kind of smooth the whole thing out and trick the eye into thinking it's actually a level color. Okay, so contrast paints. These are by Games Workshop, and this one here is my absolute favorite, Gorgrunta Fur. I use that a lot for belts, pouches, especially on commissions. I use it as recommended to kind of speed up some of my commissions. So that's always a nice option. Then I have over here Space Wolves Gray. Now this one I do not use as intended. I use it a lot for my TMM, True Metallic Metal, and I use it to shade silvers or steel because it has a nice blue tint to it. So I thin it down a little bit to use just in the shadows. All I'm going to do is get a bunch on and then smear it over. Now you can see it gets darker. It's like a wash. It gets darker in the recesses, but it's still colored in the raised areas. And that raised area is a lot brighter than it was with the washes. The washes only left you a very faded color, but here you have something more vibrant. Not all of them are made the same. So if we look at the gray here, and I do the same exact thing, you can see we don't get very much gray on the raised bits. It kind of only goes into the shaded areas. So what I'll do is after I put on some silver, I will actually thin it down. And what I usually do is I'll get some on my brush and then I dip it in the water to make it a little bit thinner. And then it runs more like a wash. And I'm able to tint the metallic. Then we have speed paints. Now speed paints are the army painter's version of contrast paints. Games Workshop has contrast paints completely trademarked, so they call them speed paints. It's the same exact idea. This one is hardened leather. I'll put some of this on her glove right here. And you can see how it pools in the darker area, but stays nice and vibrant on top. Then I also have in my hand metallic medium. I also have an iridescent medium. Basically, what a medium means is it's just something you can add to the paint to change the properties. So in the case of contrast medium, that turns it into contrast paint. If you have acrylic medium, which I don't actually have any of, that will thin out the paint because you're adding more medium without adding more pigment. Again, here, metal medium, you can turn any paint into a metallic. The iridescent, basically you put that on and it has an iridescent shimmer to it. But there's all sorts of mediums that you can mix into the paint to change the properties. We already saw the glaze medium. I had mentioned that that I have a metallic and an iridescent. Now, one of the key things when dealing with metallic paint is you don't want to use your good brushes. Metallic paint has metallic flakes in it. They're not actually metallic, but something similar. And that will damage your brushes. So we actually have these cheap ones we get off Amazon. We buy them in bulk. There's something like 100 for $5 or something like that. And we also use a separate rinse cup. Mine is metallic for the metallic paints, as opposed to my official Reaper brush cleaning utility pod. So that's for my good brushes and non-metallics. That way, when I rinse off the metallic flakes, they're still not getting in my good brushes. So that's very important. We're going to go ahead and add a little bit of paint to the metallic medium here and mix that up. And there we go. Light blue metallic paint. If you want it more metallic, you just put in more medium, which honestly it feels like I need. There we go. That's better. And now we have a metallic sheen on our baby blue armor. So that's metallic medium. Now the iridescent medium is a little different. One thing, it's Liquitex iridescent medium that I use. And I've done this, the first time I tried it was on a mermaid. It was gorgeous. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put her away because I am working on a project, my fun little succubus here that's inspired by Brush for Hire. And I want the inside of her wings to look iridescent. So you can see I kind of did a splotchy paint job between blues and purples so that it fit the theme. And now I could mix the paint into the medium, and you can see how it has, oh, the wash is dripping. You can see how it has a little something in it similar to the metallic. That's what gives it that shine. Whereas I would, I'm not using technical names, but I would call them metallic flakes in the metallic medium. I would call this more glitter. Okay, so what I did there was I'm changing out, and this is my Artist Opus texture board for dry brushing, and definitely recommend it. It does make dry brushing easier. I'll actually show off a little bit here. Ben got me the Ninjan Artist Opus dry brush set for Christmas one year. And I definitely recommend the Artist Opus stuff. I think the Ninjan might have been a limited edition, but what they have is pretty good. I've got a little bit of the medium on the dry brush. I'm not going to take too much of it off like you normally would because I actually want a little more on than usual. And I'm just going to dry brush it over it so it gives that iridescent sheen. Again, you can mix the color in, but let me just show you quickly how nice and easy this is. And Suddenly we have sparkly wings. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. So hopefully now you know the difference between contrast paint and speed paint, glazes, washes, different mediums. And I hope you learned something. If you have any more tips or tricks, be sure you share those and let everybody know. I always read the comments, so feel free to post any suggestions, tips, ideas, anything that was helpful to you, any questions you still have. I'm happy to answer them all. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. That really helps me out. If you like the video, it would be great if you could give it a like, or even better, share it with a friend, so we can start making this channel grow a little bit more. That would be awesome. So that's it for this one. Until next time, have fun and keep creating.